Go. There you go.
All right.
You are live.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks, Ben.
Almost ready.
Almost.
All right, everybody. Ready to get started? Karen?
Thank you, Ben. You've got a louder voice than I do. Okay, so a couple introductions. At first, everyone, I want you to meet at some point. Stop by and meet with Micah Moffitt. She's our new executive director back there in the corner. Just say hi to her sometime. She will be. She's taken over as executive director for AIA Springfield starting in December. So we're really happy to have her. So she'll be helping our chapter do many things. I'd also like to note some new members. I know we had new members last year. I can't tell you right now. Camille and Ashton and Emily are up here. Anyone else was new last year? Chris?
No, I was waving high about it. Chris is always new.
Chris is always new. And do we have any allied members here? No allied members. Okay. I want to give a big thank you to Micah and Kate for the holiday party. It was a great party. It was lots of fun, lots of great food, and it was fun to just visit with everyone. Also, I want to thank Amy and Ben for their work on the component lunches, and Bruce Moore for all the help with the CEU filings. And also, we are presently we're working on our allied members. We have our new website, and I strongly suggest that everyone start to bookmark this website. We will be putting everything on here that we can, just so you can stay really informed on what's going on. We have our title sponsors here, which we're very thankful for, Enterprise, Toth, and Terracon. The way our website works is we've got all of our events listed. The next event that we have after our component meeting today, and by the way, we will, with our events there, we will always post that you can do this live stream, so you can pick it up. You know, if you can't get here in person, which we hope you can always sit at your desk and live stream it, and then turn in the learning, the self-report you're learning at that point. We have the YAF Winter Social coming up next week, and that is, remind me again where it is, Kate?
It's Best of Luck Brew Ball.
Best of Luck Brew Ball. Then we also have a couple of things that we want architects to really participate in, is the Forward SGF Visioning Workshops. There are 3 workshops coming up. They do take a while, but Jennifer Swan was saying that they're usually around 2 hours or so.
This workshop will be a 2-hour long. No longer than 2 hours, is what I was told.
But
I'm not running it, so.
But they are really important to get input back from our community about the way we think Springfield will be developing, what it needs, those kinds of understandings. So the Forward SGF Visioning Workshops one is at Oasis, another one's at University Plaza, and another one is at the Relic Event Center. So try and get to one of those and just, give them your input as an architect, and let's kind of push forward with Springfield as a design-oriented community. We also have Hammond School of Architecture. We have their lectures on. Jules Dingle from Digsaw out of Philadelphia is going to be here in early February. We also have a Better Block Springfield and Tau Sigma Delta and AIA Springfield. It is a We Create 2020. It's a bus stop competition that we hope that people can join in. It is one that it will be kind of charrettes on Fridays at coffee shops, so it should be lots of fun. And then our next component meeting, Brad Palmer will be here to talk about Springfield energy codes, the new energy codes that Springfield has just passed. So you can, please look through. We've got a lot of events listed. We're trying to get as many on there as we can, just so you know what's going on, and it's an easy way to find out how to plug in. We also, at the bottom, have listed some chapter resources. So you can, get on this and look at a calendar of all our events for the year, and also kind of follow the CEUs that you should be getting if you're coming to the component meetings. A lot of those CEU credits will be pending until we get them approved, but once we get them approved, we'll note that they're approved. So it should be an easy way for you to keep up with all that. Also, we have members and member firms listed. All of this stuff we have just been putting on there. So, that we need to update it. We are just kind of in the process of putting all this stuff up. So let us know, give feedback to the board, to me, to Micah, about what's working, what would be better, all of that stuff, because we really want this website to be something that serves everyone as best as possible. Other than that, we are looking for lots of allied members. We have an allied members list here. And down to here. And so we will be looking for more allied members throughout this year. So if you know of any, if you look on that list and you don't see those people that you're working with all the time, let us know, because we do want to recruit them. And we also have, Dan Scott had given us some information for the SAFA. He wanted you to know that the funds are nearly at $92,000 at this point. The goal for them is to get to $100,000. At that point, then it will be something where they can really give a lot more money for scholarships for our component. He says here that we have established 29 individuals as founders, and the list is now closed and permanently established. And then he will reveal this list in the coming weeks and plan to celebrate the members of the Stahl Society at a private function later this spring. And there, additional fundraising efforts are going to be forthcoming. And then he says checks are payable to the Springfield Area Foundation and can be mailed to the Community Foundation of the Ozarks, and we'll have that information on our website. So if you need more information about that, you can contact Dan Scott. Michael?
The AIA.org/Springfield, that's all you have to type in, and this will come up?
Yes. And you can also type in...
You don't have to log in to your AIA.
No, but from this you can log in and you can check your CEUs, you can check your transcript right there, you can get to all of the national stuff, you can then compare it to our CEU list, you can look at all our events, all of that stuff. So yes. So yeah, just if you can bookmark this new website, it will get you to all this information.
Yeah, and it's the search engines would have it. We happen to be the first Springfield that shows up on the list. So if you search AIA Springfield, we have it. So.
All right, then I will turn it over to Ben.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen. Appreciate all of your hard work on the webpage. There's nothing more frustrating than the webpage that's not useful to the members or finding the information that you're after. So I think we're certainly headed in the right direction. Again, if you have comments, now that this website's live, speak to any board members and we'll be happy to take that input and incorporate whatever may be more helpful to you on the local AIA website. I'm going to swap this over to our presenter today. Today we have Chris Reedy with Crane Agency out of St. Louis, here to talk to us today about email, the 7 deadly sins. Who knew that your presentation would be so popular? Great attendance today. Oftentimes the litigation side of our profession is sort of the dark side, and a lot of times we don't like to face it or talk about it. I think what's important, especially with presentations like this, is we're armed with the knowledge that helps us minimize, mitigate our liability exposure, because every day we know we have it, and the more we can think about and be mindful of the work we do and how we communicate, the better. With that, Chris, thank you for your time and coming in. And
absolutely.
Looking forward to the presentation.
Great, thank you. Good evening or good afternoon. I know you guys are, we've got roughly an hour to get through, and I can drag anything I won't do that, I promise. So a little background about me. He started off telling you where I'm from, but we're not lawyers, we're insurance brokers. And my role is to, and I'm not making an advertisement out of this, but my role is to actually mitigate risk for architects and engineers. That's my client base. So these programs are put together by the AXA XL insurance company. And the idea behind these programs is I present them in public, I present them in firms, I do them for the AIA and ACEC. But the whole idea behind it is to get you to think about the things other than design in your daily practice. So I know there's one architectural student in the room today with us. So the idea is maybe we scare him a little bit and he thinks twice about it, and maybe his dad will get mad at me because he'll change his major again, we don't know. But the idea is maybe to relay some of this information. Some of you in the room have already seen this once before, I apologize. We did this last year in the office. But what I wanted to do is run through kind of some of the objectives we're going to talk about today. Now again, the 7 deadly sins of email. This stuff was put together by the claims department of an insurance carrier from items that they have seen in mitigating claims. So whether you know it or not, claims happen, they're out there. Some people in the firm deal with them, some people in the firm don't have to deal with them. So I didn't want to come in here and start talking about contracts, which is what I usually normally do, but you know, because contracts, everybody gets a contract these days. They're always signed before the project starts. We run through that one, it's no big deal. So we're going to run through some of these things and just look at some of the items that come up, and then we're going to get into the 10 steps that maybe we can consider on a daily basis that we can use to mitigate what we're doing when we're communicating. We all communicate with email, correct? Just about? I mean, there's very few people that don't use email anymore. It scares me even more when we start talking about texting and all these others, the social media aspect of it. You got to be very careful. I think we all know, if we watch the news today, we got to be very careful about some of the communication we put out there. So we're going to run through it. I would appreciate questions, because you don't want to listen to a lecture for an hour. I promise you that. It's boring as sin. So anytime you've got something you want to throw out, please throw it out. Share your thoughts with others. The general email complications, the amount of email you get, right? We'll just dive right in. How many emails do you get every day? My email, I mean, coming down here, I've got 2 email accounts. I got a Gmail account and I got an office email account. I mean, I pull over the side of the road and I got 27 emails at 8:30 in the morning. It's crazy. The autocorrect when you're sending something, where the phone is auto-correcting your emails as you're typing them on your iPhone. The Office will do it, you know, the Office programs do it too. Don't worry about the Randy factor. We're not going to bring him into this today, but he's a guy that just makes everything complicated in our lives. Tiny screens, old eyes, big thumbs. Again, not paying attention to what we're doing. We're going to get into these things and just kind of look at them. So the purpose of communication is for the recipient of the message to understand the message as delivered as it's intended. Now, how many times have you looked at an email, sent a response, gone back and looked at it later and said, oh, they also wanted this, or that's maybe not what they were exactly asking. It happens to me, and maybe it's because I'm so fast at jumping on the gun of responding to someone just to get through it. But you got to be very cautious to make sure you're understanding exactly what that person's asking for, especially for what you're doing. You're hearing from contractors, you're hearing from owners, you're hearing from other project managers. Do you want us to do this? And you're jumping off and giving answers out and maybe not clearly understanding exactly what they're wanting. And I hate, the one thing I don't like about email, I don't like to use the word hate, it's too strong. One thing I don't like about email is the back and forth all the time. So I still use the telephone quite often if you don't understand what somebody's asking you. But that, I hate it. I don't want to answer every email with another question, right? That just drags it on even further. Which email comment came from an XL claim? So look at these comments of it. These are actually out of emails that were used in when your records get subpoenaed, and this stuff shows up. So Sam, the client, is light years past difficult. Design not fully complying with codes does not necessarily mean it will fail. If you're a structural engineer and you put something like that out, what do you think that the opposition is going to do with that? I mean, it's going to sink your ship. You've got to be very careful of what you're writing. We do not have enough qualified engineers to staff the project. All these things you remember when you're sending something, and I'll say this multiple times today, The one thing you have to remember is, do you want to reread this email in front of a judge and a jury, if that were ever to be the case? That's really how you gotta look at it, is would you be comfortable rereading the email in that situation? Definition of an email: messages sent and received electronically through an email system, or the document that keeps attorneys busy during a deposition. And anybody in this room that's ever been deposed or been served with a deposition to supply records for a claim, an insurance claim, or any type of claim for that matter, it takes forever to accumulate all that information. In the old days, you had to go out and sit around and print it all out. Nowadays, you go find it, you put it on a zip drive, and you send it to whoever is asking for it. But it can come from a lot of places. It can come from a client. It can come from a third party that is injured on a project. It can come from a government body. It's amazing all the people that think they have the rights to take your information and use it. It could come from a claim that you're not even related to, but that party wants to depose everybody on the project. So just remember, that's what that information is used for. So we've got the 7 deadly sins. I still have not seen the movie. I've done this presentation for a while, and I still have not seen the movie. Has anybody seen the movie? It's greed, wrath, lust, envy, sloth, gluttony, and pride. But we're going to talk about the 7 deadly sins of email, which are self-criticism, blaming, complaining, colloquialism, which I hadn't heard that word in years, thoughtlessness, self-indulgence, and too much information. So the self-criticism, I messed up, you messed up. We're looking at these things that you can end up writing, and your intent is not to disparage yourself or anyone else, but the way it's written, you got to remember what the other party may possibly do with it if they ended up using it against us. The blaming is you messed up, complaining everything is hard and unfair. We're still at that stage of the game. The colloquialism I had not heard in a very long time. I sort of write like I talk. Again, using email like you're having a conversation. That's how I used to use email. Today I use it as document form only. It's really to document facts. I'm not talking to somebody about what I'm doing on Friday night usually anymore on email. I'm usually, if somebody wants to do that, it's usually a text message. But be very careful that you're not trying to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody in an email, especially when it's about a project and there's other parties to the project. If you were disparaging someone else and that email were to be leaked to someone else, and I know that has happened, you got to be very careful what you're writing. The thoughtlessness, self-indulgence, I know it all, or I don't know it all. There's always somebody on the project. Or the too much information. Again, we all want to relay information to others to help out. That's the goal. I mean, if somebody asks you for something about a project, sure, you're like, you know what, let's just help them get this thing through and get it going. Sometimes you can reveal more than you need to reveal. And it doesn't matter until it matters, right? That's really what it all comes down to. None of this matters until it does matter. Self-criticism, negative judgment or analysis of one's own actions or behaviors without the aid of another person. So, let's look at this. Here is a consultant's email response to their client. And you go through this, and basically what the guy is saying is, you know what? You've been a little difficult to work with. I'm working very hard to get enough information to be able to paint a true picture of what it will take to complete this project, given the amount I was off on my original opinion of probable cause. I'm very nervous about making a projection, meaning that because this is going to be a $300,000 project, the first bid from the contractor came in at $500,000. Now you want to know how we're going to either engineer this thing to get it to $300,000 or whatever we can. And here he is right off the bat saying, I messed up the first time. Well, you got to be very difficult. You got to be very descriptive about how you're writing something. I'm working very hard to get enough information of what it will take to complete this project. The status of each area is as follows. It's really that simple to put this information down and not incriminate yourself on this matter. Blaming, finger pointing, not my monkey, it's your problem, don't worry about you take it, you started it. The covering your tail, you made me do it. Again, these are all just, they're natural reactions of people, to be honest with you. I just want you to think before you put it in writing. Doing it verbally is one thing. How many times do you have a verbal conversation with somebody and then you get into a meeting later on when nobody remembers that was ever said in a project meeting? Well, verbally is totally different than if you write it down. If it's written down, and somebody can retrace it, they're going to find it. Blaming is the act of making explicit or often unfair accusations. Blame, finger pointing. Blaming, shifting, let's see, transferring is the blame shifting, the act of transferring it to someone else. It was the engineer's fault. It was the interior designer's fault. I didn't have anything to do with this. Not my issue. Again, when there's a problem on a project, some people don't care whose fault it is. They just want, you'll get that response of, hey, we just want this corrected. We're trying to open our doors and we want this thing completed. Action by an individual to protect themselves from possible subsequent criticism or legal penalties. That's covering your tracks. Well, I think that's also, again, a natural reaction. So, this is from a consultant internal email to someone else in the office. I reviewed the design per your request. I have some concerns, but because of the short time you allowed me, I couldn't review it as thoroughly as I normally do, so go ahead and fix the corrections I made red and get it out to bid. I didn't have time to review it as thoroughly as I normally do. Again, you're not thinking that anybody's going to see this, but under a subpoena, you can't withhold this information. You can't exfoliate information. You can't delete it by any stretch when you can. But that's a bigger issue. So you got to be very cautious how you write these things. Expressing pain, dissatisfaction, or resentment. I'm complaining. Again, I don't need to explain these to you. These are common refrains that everybody knows. The venting. Tim's over there shaking his head.
Here's what I'm thinking, is that all three of these so far, the root of these three things is arrogance. This person writing has this need to express themselves about their feelings. Nobody cares.
That's why I'm saying use email as a documentation only, not what your opinion of things. Again, you give opinions every day. That's your job. So when you do relay information to somebody, you're expressing an opinion of how something's supposed to work. But that's right. Basically, what it's coming down to, what he's saying is, use this as information only, as a way to communicate back and forth information on a project, and not as a way to, if you want to express blame about a project, or you want to express complaining about a project, I have one suggestion for you. You pick up the telephone. That's probably the best way to do it. And then, if you feel necessary, you can certainly follow up the telephone call with an email about this is what we talked about on the telephone call, but be very careful about that complaining in an email format. Anything that's traceable. Who's in IT here? Anybody understand that you can't really get rid of any of this information? They can find anything through forensics on a computer. They can go to the phone company, they can get your phone records, they can get everything they want. XL claim. So consultants email comments to their client. The problem with our relationship is always one way. It's always us making your life easier, better, more profitable. When in fact your group couldn't have made our lives more complicated if you had tried. This is talking to a client. I mean, to me, if the relationship was that bad, I wouldn't go any further with it. You got the project out the door. Don't worry about it anymore. Do not follow up the last email after you get your last invoice with the guys. I hope I never see you again. It's just not worth it. It's that tit for tat, I got the last word thing. We live with that enough every day. My suggestion is, if you've got problems on a job and you've gotten through it, let it go. Now you know not to do business with that person anymore. Colloquialism. I was very, very guilty of this until I saw this screen, because I was using email as a communication back and forth, trying to basically have a phone conversation on an email format. Probably not the best idea. Written communication that imitates informal speech, use of informal words, phrases, or even slang. You understand what I'm talking about. I know you do. I think that's just the way when email has evolved, at least for me, after listening to this kind of stuff. Email has evolved from that conversation typing, because luckily I'm just a 2-finger typer, so I don't type that fast. I've gotten rid of having the conversations with it. I've gone back to the telephone, because it is that much easier to have a conversation with somebody, in my opinion, on a telephone. Now, you don't always get them. And you always have the person that wants to hide behind the email and doesn't want to pick up your phone call, but you know, I can't fix that. The qualifiers, the words or phrases that are added to another word or modify its meaning. The adjectives, the filler words. Again, the filler words to me are when you're trying to express to someone, I'm smarter than you, so I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff in there. You know, your choice. Do it if you want. But the reality is, clear, concise, consistent messages probably work a heck of a lot better. It's kind of apparent your calculations are pretty much wrong. They're either wrong or they're not. You know, when you're dealing with engineers, you know, I one time said to a structural engineer, the premium's going up about 5%, and he said, son, I don't deal in abouts. He said, people die in abouts in my business, and you know, fair enough. I'll tell him exactly what the number is, and he sends me an application back, and it's got 7.256% of his work is churches. He goes right down to the wire. So, you know, it either is or it isn't. The adjectives, the adverbs, you get all this. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time running through all this, but you know, this is an absolute problem. It's a problem. We got a problem on the job. Somebody does. So, whoops, there's ways to do it. So, look at some of this, the way these are just typed emails, you know? So the meeting this morning sucked, and I have no desire to go back for a while, and I don't plan to. It was Rob and Aaron who were there, and had little or no involvement of anything. They decided that they wanted to be tough guys and everything was, and about everything, and complaining about every little thing, and blame most everything right to me. This is internal from a project manager of some sort to his boss, probably. And he's writing all this out. And again, as I've said 1,000 times, it doesn't matter that he's writing it at the moment. It's when somebody else sees it is when it matters. So these are the conversations you need to have in your office too. The same conversation is, I don't want to hear about you complaining in an email format. Just tell me the facts. You went to the meeting, Rob and Aaron were there were some issues, what are the issues? And then how are we going to fix this, or what are we going to do? But you got to convey this information to your team as well. Seems like I keep going through two here. The definition. It's me, right? I ramble, I go on, I'm lengthy, I'm confusing, a confusing message. The idea is to make sure that when you're responding to someone, and I said this earlier about that instant reply, you know, we're always, at least me, I'm so used to seeing an email and giving somebody an answer and making sure I've gone through that whole email to make sure I've gotten every topic they addressed in that thing. Because what am I doing when I jump on the gun and I answer an email real fast, and then there's another topic? I'm wasting my time too, not just theirs, of sending them 2 emails with 2 different answers. But the reality is, read the email in full, then present your answer. It probably saves you some time, because I've gotten emails back. What about question 2? What about this? It's my fault. You know, I'm just not paying attention. I'm jumping the gun. I'm as guilty as anybody. There's conflicting info that we can talk about. We can talk to the low bidder or not. Can we value engineer or not? The reality is that we do have some bids that come in over budget, and we should know what we can't do while the bidding process is still open. Your thoughts? Okay, that's a real live email. Who knows what he's asking, really, at the end of the day. I've become a big believer in using the bullet points, or 1, 2, 3, or whatever the case may be. I've spent a lot of time correcting myself in doing this when I'm relaying information back to people. I guess I just didn't know how to do the bullet points before, and now I know it gives me a bullet point. But there's conflicting information on what we can discuss with bidders while the bidding process is still open. My questions are, line it out. Then this person, and what I normally do, and maybe you do the same, I see it a lot when I get information back, is people will give me the answer right after it, or maybe in a different color, or something to that effect. It's just a better way to communicate it than that guy's original premise. How are you going to answer this? right? It's a separate paragraph for each one, and I'm not even sure how many are there. Down here, we defined 4 of them. The instant reply. I think you already know what the answer to this is. Good to see you at the site today. I want to substitute the Fitzer valve to the specified AE 4730 model. Please confirm that we can make the change and let me know if you're free for lunch on Thursday. And the answer to that is simple as that. It's as simple as that. So now the guy's gonna, now the project, whoever's on the project, the contractor, whoever it is gonna go ahead and change that valve on that backflow system or on the wastewater treatment plant. And he certainly intends on being there for lunch on Thursday. We're assuming that's what the answer was. I'm hoping that the answer yes is to the first part, because that's what everybody reads as the first part, unless the guy just loves going to lunch. But a one-word answer is only coming from a one-word question, in my opinion, and that's not very easy to do. So you gotta be very careful about how you're responding to someone to make sure there's not multiple items in there. As simple as that. Let me check the substitution and yes to lunch Thursday. I get it. This is just, remember, when I talk to people, I think that everybody knows what they're doing and they're responding accordingly, but there is always someone that's going to jump the gun. And I think how many years have I been coming into the office talking about this stuff, and we still find things that can get done. I get it. You guys are working busy every day. You can't think of everything on every one of these projects. So the reason behind this is just a reminder to think about what you're doing during the day, but you gotta make sure the other party understands exactly what you're saying back to them. Self-indulgence. I'm trying to get through this as fast as I can, because the second part of this is better. The opinion, my view, my guess, my overstatement. Pretty much stick to the facts. Again, I've really learned to use email as a relayer of information and not, how smart I am or how much better I am at somebody else, or guessing about things. When you're guessing about something, you better find the real answer before you respond to them. A view or a judgment not necessarily based on fact or knowledge. Now, I took exception to this page because what do we do every day? We render an opinion. Every day we render an opinion. Architecture is not just a big white sheet with a bunch of lines on it making up a building. It's a rendering an opinion for a fee. That's the definition of a professional service. Obviously there's more to it than that, but that's what the definition of a professional service is. Speculation, forming a theory or conjecture without firm evidence, and exaggeration representing something as better or worse than it really is. I caution you on the exaggeration about maybe something not performing or maybe overperforming when you're talking to a client, especially if you're talking about lead product or something to that effect, and they're going to use it to base their energy cost. Be very cautious about what you tell someone about how a product's going to perform, because I promise you if it doesn't perform to those standards, and they are a stickler for detail, you're going to hear from them. So, here is another claim email that they took out. Consultant's opinion during the claim process on why his design failed. I don't even like reading this thing because it's so difficult, but I appreciate your thorough review of our work product and don't take exception to any of it. Although you do not explain a cause, it is my opinion the dynamics of the wind and the configuration of the building surrounding the canopy created a wind tunnel effect for the pole location that failed. The other 11 poles performed adequately in our positions. Why are we to pay for all of them when it was just an issue with one of these? Again, we're coming out in an email, writing down that, okay, we've admitted that there's an issue here. If one can fail, what the owner is going to say, or the project, whoever's in charge of the project, is we don't want any of these to fail. And depending on wind conditions or wind loads, it could. So you have to be very, very cautious. I thought they would give me a subsequent on that thing, but be very cautious about how you're giving information back to them when you're relaying it, because you just don't know how it's going to be received. I like the old phone call with the follow-up email per our phone conversation. This is what we talked about. But always be cautious about how you're relaying information when you're taking some responsibility for something. Did I go too far? I did. So here's the too much information. Again, it's easy to do because we like to help people. Information not important or useful to the subject of discussion or incriminating information offered as justification and or explanation. Again, your architects, your educated, trained, and experienced as architects, the average lay person out there, I promise you, doesn't have a clue what you do. They don't understand it. They don't know all the education you've got behind you or all the experience you've got behind you. They do not get it. So just your common email to a non-design professional, and sometimes contractors, is they don't understand it. So I get that you're going to be detail-oriented, but you gotta remember your audience, who you're talking to. Trevor may be brand new to this company, but he has a lot of experience, so I'm sure we are fine. I'm sure we are fine. Trevor's, been in the job for 6 months, and we don't know why he couldn't lead the project. I'm sorry to hear you're unhappy due to a lot of issues at the end of this project, but given your last-minute changes, I think things went better than expected. You start off every project at the kickoff meeting that everybody's gonna, hold hands and walk through this thing all the way to the end. It's gonna be a great deal. And you gotta be very careful what you're saying back to someone. Trevor has 12 years of experience with similar projects, which in my opinion is a benefit to the team. There you go. He explained it. He just gave it a little bit more detail-oriented is what he did. I would be really helpful if you could provide specific examples of a lot of issues you referred to in your email. Then I would like to have a call to discuss your concerns. Again, when somebody's writing back to you to saying, oh, we got a lot of problems on this job. What a lot of problems. Yesterday I got a phone call from an electrical engineer who went out on a job because the client was saying, we got $17,000 in problems on this job, and you, the electrical engineer, are responsible for this. And he goes out to the job site. He calls me at 5:30 last night on my way home, and he's like, yeah, I just got done with that. The owner didn't even show up. The two contractors showed up. And they're the ones blaming everything on the electrical engineer. And the electrical engineer said, by the time I was done with my punch list and all the lights that they didn't put in that were on the design, because it was a lighting issue, he said they all basically just looked and walked away. You gotta be you wanna know what these issues are. They call you up on the phone, we got a lot of problems on this job. What are the lot of problems? Tell me, let's get deep, let's get down to specifics. So, do not document your self-incrimination or self-critical project concerns. Be cautious of that. Document solutions, not blame. That's the best, right? That is probably the best topic on this entire presentation. If you want to give some information, give a solution to something. Don't be blaming someone else for it. Stick to the facts. Keep words that serve a purpose, delete the rest. Before replying to an email, confirm you understood what was asked, answered questions appropriately. Again, I'm the guilty party. I'm not blaming anybody else for that. That's me. Edit your emails for all forms of opinion, speculation, and exaggeration, and then provide only the necessary facts in your email. Right? Again, I just like this program because we do email every day. So let's talk about something that we can use in our daily practice to maybe go back and try and fix some of these issues. So here are 10 topics to discuss. Know your purpose. Have a strong subject line. Bluff is the bottom line up front. So what are you talking about in the email? Now, one topic per email. How easy is that? I get that. It's remember, a lawyer probably wrote this, so he's going to tell you what to do, even though he doesn't do it himself. Edit. Be concise. Have a clear ending. Proofread it. Make sure. The confidential is, I can't tell you to make it confidential. The purpose of that is, do you think your email is confidential? When you send it, hey, keep this confidential, don't tell anybody. There is no confidential email anymore. It may be for a while, but eventually it won't be. And the litmus test. What's the litmus test? I said it at the very beginning of this. Would you want to read this email in a court of law in front of a judge or a jury if you had to? Simple statement. Why are you sending this email? Give information, ask for information, confirm an agreement, delegate work, make a request, and set up an appointment. great forms to use as an email. Who is your audience? Internal project team, your boss, client team, the project stakeholders, all these other parties. So this is important because what did I just say a minute ago about you're all design professionals, trained, educated, and experienced in what you do, but the public doesn't know exactly what you do. I get emails from you all that will start using acronyms about things. You know, if you're an electrical engineer, you start talking about bus and all this stuff to be in an email. I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't go to electrical engineering. I didn't go to engineering school. I really don't understand it. So when you're telling me about things, you have to, or you're telling a layperson about something, you really have to spell it out and don't expect that they're going to understand when you're verbalizing like you're talking to another electrical engineer. The strong subject line. Again, I was not a big user of subject line. I've completely changed my way of thinking because I've learned how to search. I didn't know how to search before, but I've learned how to search for emails. But that strong subject line is key when you're sending someone an email. And actually, I've gotten to in my habits of looking at the subject line. I look at the sender, then the subject line. I used to just go straight to the body of the email and start reading. So hopefully you'll get information just from that subject line about what you're about to read. So it's your caller ID on your email. Put your key message in the subject line and compel the recipient to open your email. Yes, sir.
So how do you deal with a thread of emails where the subject changes?
And that's what I say, one email, one topic. Easy to do, easy to say, difficult to do. However, you can change that subject line. Now, again, it's all going to be searchable by the subject line, but you can change the subject line as the email morphs down the line. Because I realize I've got a phone full of them where you have a string of emails that, you know, there's 10 people on this thing or 10 different emails on this thing, and the topic is eventually folded into something else. I get it. Very difficult to stop that chain, start a new email, and send it out and going on, you know, I'm not going to continue that, I'm going to start this one. So my recommendation is to change your caller ID when you do that. Obviously, you have a practice about saving emails. I shouldn't say obviously, but it's a good policy. Saving emails on projects. Everybody's a little different about how they do it. You know, if a lawyer walked in the room, he'd say, save every email. And I realized you probably can't do that. Maybe you can, but that's an awful lot of email, a lot of electronic communication to be saving. Plus, you'd end up being a documenter instead of an architect. And that's really what you're doing. You're documenting everything you do. You don't have time to practice architecture. So, right here, it says it. Are you changing the subject line, Bruce? You read ahead. The bottom line up front, state the intent within the first 2 lines of your email. A great suggestion. So you start off your email with, here's a quick summary of our phone call. Please confirm by Friday that you approve this additional scope of work. Or the following email will be, you know, will hit on the following topics or however you want to do it. I noticed that emails are shorter than they used to be. Emails used to be, unless they're used for, you know, unless it's a documentation of a meeting after the fact, emails are no longer, you know, 4 paragraphs anymore, at least in my experience. People tend to keep them a lot shorter. So detailing that up front, what you're going to talk about below is key to maybe keeping someone's interest and getting an answer. Because has anybody walked in on Monday, sent an email, and on Friday somebody says, hey, did we ever resolve that issue? You know, I never heard back from them on that. Did they even read it? Do you know they ever read it? You know, that's an issue. One topic. Keep your emails simple. One topic per email. One issue, one idea, a decision, request, one question. I realize that is just wishful thinking. It doesn't happen very often because of how they morph back and forth. And again, I go back to, I'll say it, I go back to that telephone. If this thing gets too complicated, let's get on the phone and hammer out what we're really trying to get to here, and then use that final email as, here's what we discussed, this is what it's going to come down to. I'm still a big believer in the telephone. I realize you have to use email, especially when you're communicating or sending information. You gotta send that information. But that telephone is key to making sure you understand what everybody's talking about. And what else is the telephone in my opinion? It's a marketing tool. If you're just hiding behind your emails all day long, people do need to know there's a real person out there somewhere, at least in my opinion. So, the one topic, the key issue is, the decision has to be made concerning, or although we have multiple concerns, this needs to be addressed first. Let's get to the bottom line, let's get it figured out, and let's see if we can get through this. So you're not sitting around at 3 o'clock on Friday afternoon going, I never heard back from them about that email on Friday. Again, it just drags into the next week. You know what I noticed? Did anybody else notice this? What was Monday, the 6th? Did you notice that all of a sudden your phone was ringing off the hook and the emails were filling up? Everybody's back at work. I mean, it was so quiet in my, from my perspective, from emails and telephones over the holidays, is that all of a sudden the holidays are over and everything needs to be done yesterday. I just kind of noticed that the other day. Like, where is everybody? I was at work the week before. Where was everybody? Edit. Be mindful of red flag words. I'm not going to go spend too much time on this because I don't want to waste a whole lot of time on it. But, it's kind of like when we were talking about highest, all, complete, none, best. It's kind of like when I start talking to people about contracts and that any and all language or all these things they want to throw you into that you see often in an indemnification agreement or something to that effect. So be very cautious. Guarantees, the certifies, assures, the wills, all these things basically, if you're using that information to convey to someone else, you're giving them an assurance. But if somebody's using it back at you, what are they trying to do? They're trying to raise your standard of care, is what they're doing. So be very cautious how it's being used. Your best to omit those words, just like you would like to omit them in a contract. If you want something to read, if you want someone to read your email, keep it short. Pretty simple, right? Use short sentences, 5 sentences per email or less. Make your messages easy to scan. Again, these are somebody's idea of a workflow of how to send an email. I get it. In the real world, you can't explain to someone a detail on a project in 5 sentences probably. You're going to give more information from that, especially if they're asking for that information. You may have an attachment to it and say, here's the attachment. If you look at, detail item 7B, you will notice that. It takes a while to get that information to someone. So, being concise is great and dandy, but it's, it does take some time to get to. Be specific. Avoid jargon and generalizations. Add headings within the text of the email and use bullet points. I've become a big user of the bullet points just from the standpoint that it's a lot easier to respond to someone if you line them out and tell them exactly what you're looking for, and they can respond to these things, using that. I do that often where I'll change the color of my text and answer somebody's emails, right on their emails, and then you can write see below your questions and answers. Again, this is common sense stuff. I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know. It's just the practice. It's the practice, the daily practice of it, because we get so used to how we do things that we don't always pay attention to it. The adding headings within the text of the email, sometimes you got to be cautious about how many different things you put in there. So I worry a little bit about that. Try and if it's 3 different issues on a particular project that aren't really that closely related, I'd rather have 3 separate emails on that particular situation. Tell the recipient what they need to do. This is important because what did I say earlier? You send an email on Monday morning and you never hear back from anybody when Friday afternoon rolls around. So, thanks for confirming this by Thursday. Let me know if you are available. No response required. I want to make sure you were in the loop or in the, we all get in a situation where there's an email stream and how many people are on it? 6 people are on it. And some will do reply, some will do reply all, and some will reply all and omit some names from it, and then you'll see later that you weren't included when your name gets added back on. So you know, sometimes you're damned if you do, damned if you don't in that situation, but be very careful about when you're trying to get an answer from someone and you're asking 4 different people for that answer, that everybody's getting the same request. Proofread. Again, guilty. Sending emails. You ever gone back and looked at an email you sent 5 years ago? And you'll say to yourself, did I really send that? I can't believe I sent that to someone. Use, spell, check. Pretty simple. But to me, it's just, you know, you type and write so fast, you'll leave out a word, you'll leave out just the word the or is or whatever, and the person gets it. I get it, I understand. They understand the gist of it. But when you go back and relook at it, and you're saying, geez, I shouldn't have sent that. It looks terrible, right? Could have had a better answer. I could have relayed that differently. So basically, think about what you're sending. But it's hard to proofread your own information. It's hard to proofread your own email because you're going to read it just as you typed it. Confidential information. Who's in charge of IT? Is there anything that is confidential in an email format? I am of the opinion that there is not. And I think that if you went back and talked to your IT consultant or your IT person in the office, you're going to find out that they can find anything. You can delete it all you want. You can delete it from the deleted, and they can track it back. And if it's bad enough, they will.
I was going to ask, those confidentiality disclaimers you see at the bottom, do those hold any weight?
That is, well, it holds weight between you and the party that you're sending it to. You know, you're saying, hey, don't share this. You know, a national franchise will ask you to design something, and they'll say everything we give you is confidential information. And they even may write it on it. This is confidential. Don't reveal this to anybody. And if it does leak out, we can hold you responsible for it. But the reality is, it's not, you know, other than you going to a cocktail party and telling somebody about your great design at the bread company or Panera Bread, right? There is no real confidential information in electronic format. It is findable. And if there is a situation that the attorney or the other party wants to dig deep enough, they will subpoena for all your records. And if they start coming in and saying, all right, start filling up USB drives with all your emails on this project, your project file, they're going to get that. So it's really easy to say, well, get rid of this one, get rid of that one. Well, you don't want to get criminal on the matter. I'd rather pay a claim than get criminal, to be honest with you. So you don't want to exfoliate any information, because that's an illegal act. The first thing you will see in a subpoena is, please preserve, what did I just see recently? I just saw something not long ago, but the attorney's letters will say, please preserve all the records on this project. Even if they're not filing a suit against you or coming after you for a claim, they still may send you, if you were party to a project, they may send you a letter saying, hey, we've got a dispute with so-and-so on this project, and we reserve our right to have you preserve your records on something. Don't then go in and start getting rid of things you shouldn't be getting rid of. Right. The red button is the delete button. So, down at the bottom, this, do you need to reply all? Does that drive anybody else crazy? It drives me nuts in our office. So we're an office of 200 people plus, and there's always the 3 people that want to reply all on an office email that goes out to everybody. It drives you crazy, and you're like, I don't care what your opinion is. So just think twice when you're doing the reply all, especially if it's, I have an architect who would stand here today and admit he did it, but there was a dispute between McCarthy Construction Company and the design team on a project in St. Louis. And my client was given this email in a multi-party format. And unfortunately for him, he wasn't overly experienced at email, and he did a reply all when he was writing back to Scream about the McCarthy project manager and how bad this guy was. It was the guy will tell you, it was the most embarrassing thing he's ever had to do. He got up out of his chair, went down to his car, and drove over to the McCarthy office to apologize to the guy he was disparaging about what he said. He said, you know what, I had to do it, because it was a long project, it was going on for a long time, and I knew if I just tried to bury it, it wouldn't go away. So be very careful on the reply alls about what you're saying. Know what you're hitting. I think, I know we've done it before, but you gotta be real cautious. What's the best test? Do I really need to send this? You know, because when somebody sends you something that sets you off, and you're getting ready to do that reply, and you're gonna write something that's gonna fire them up, I'm telling you, you're better off being the bigger person. And just turn your head and walk away or cool down. Because you know what's gonna happen tomorrow? You wouldn't have sent it. You'll say to yourself, why did I say that? It just leads to more problems. And that's really the litmus test. So, actually I got through that pretty fast. This is really the gist of the program. Do you want someone else to read your email? Will it surprise the recipient? Would it be better to wait until you are less emotional? That is key to me because there's always that time that somebody's going to set you off. There's always a contractor, the owner, somebody who's going to get you upset. And you want to reply to them. It's just like fighting with anybody else. Is it really worth it at the end of the day? You know, it's tough to do. And some people are tougher than others. But to me, I've learned that keep your cool. I mean, I haven't sent an email the other day internally in the office to someone because of something they sent out. I just said, you know what? I got more important things to do. Life is too busy. Would you be comfortable receiving this email from someone else or outside of your firm? Delivering it? That's another thing. You know, people, you always like the tough guy that hides behind the email, sends the real tough email. Then you see him on the street. Hey, how you doing? Great, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. I had a neighbor like that. This guy, I live in a condo complex, and we had this neighbor that would just fire off these emails to people, just berating everybody. And you see him down in the garage. Hey, how you doing? Like, really? You know, I don't have time for all this. Reading it aloud while sitting on the witness stand. That is, I always use that as a litmus test. Is would you want to read this later on? In a court of competent jurisdiction is what I say. And, you know, if it's the facts, and you're relaying your opinion on something, that's what expert witnesses do all day long, is they reread your email, trying to, you know, if it's the opposition's expert witness on a problem. That's what they do, is try and trip you up with something. So as long as you take out the derogatory portion of the email, and it's your opinion on something, you certainly feel a lot more comfortable about being able to back up your statement. Now, is everything you write going to be perfect? No, it shouldn't be. It should just meet the standard of care. Would anybody else have done the same thing under a similar situation? That's really what it comes down to. You know, I can always get a different opinion on how something can be done. Always. So, don't send it. When in doubt, take it out. Again, I've said this numerous times today. Use that telephone if you want to gripe about something, disparage someone, something to that effect. Telephone is a lot better way to do it because we've all been in project meetings where you've gone over a problem and you discussed it, and then at the end of the project, the owner comes back and says, somebody's going to pay this 20 grand. I said, well, we talked in that meeting. You said you were going to eat it. I don't remember that. You know, so you got to make sure that kind of stuff gets documented. But have those conversations because people don't always remember the things that they need to. Do not text the following. Do not text the following. Request for changes or revision. Does anybody have an idea of how they feel about text messages and design services? Because I'll tell you how I feel about it. Thank you very much. Unless you've got a way of saving your text to your system and you've got a policy that everybody in the office is going to do the same thing. Those text messages, you know, I guess they are probably recoverable as well, to be honest with you. But you're not going to save the project files like you are in an email. So I always tell someone, if you're confirming with somebody that you're going to be at the job site at 9:30 in the morning, fine. Knock yourself out with a text message. But if you're sending them information about something they can detail on a job on a steel package, please don't use your text system. Probably not the best way to communicate with them. Follow the email best practices. Great, that's simple to do. Are there any questions for anybody out here? Because actually we got through that relatively quickly. I was kind of speeding it up. Just thinking they were going to run through the hour. Does that kind of make sense to everybody? Gives you an idea? There's something to think about. Is really what it comes down to. I didn't tell you anything you don't already know. I really didn't. It's just taking email and putting it in your profession is really what it's doing. It applies to every profession, in my opinion. It applies to every business. So that's what I have for you today. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And you guys do get a good turnout. I like it. Very nice. Thanks very much.
Chris, appreciate that. Yeah, that's good. Now I'll spend the next 4 hours closing one. Next month, we'll talk about the Lincoln Circle.
Well, I'm not supposed to give it out, but I would. I didn't. You know what? I got home. I do it, walk through it.
No! I couldn't figure out what they were all laughing about.
Even last night I thought about you. I wrote an email, I was so fired up, and I was like, all right, hold on, delete. This one still haven't responded to. How it was.
Yes, sir. Do you have a list or somebody else? You know what? Don't you looking for the sign?
That way you're like 100%.
It's like a, yeah.
Mainly through dealing stuff.
What is the last appointment number for
Hello.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm Jennifer Wilson. We are looking at renewing our professional liability. Our renewal's up in April, so
We got some time.
to talk to you. So anyway, we would be interested in
I'll give you a call.
Tim spoke very highly of you.
Very complimentary.
Actually, you can give me a call, and then Kathy Smith is actually our office administrator, and that's called. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to market the company.
Yeah, I'm getting this there as well.
You still have a car?
Still chairman.
Receiver of cash?
But one thing I've been doing the last couple of years, occasionally I get flyers. Architects.
And you can't use it.
So if you're going to have somebody call back
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Go do more emails. Pleasure. Appreciate it. I saw the subject. I was like, this guy wants it. Like you said, we all know it. It's just you get it wrong and forget about it.
Did you get me a copy of your office?
Yes.
Oh, look at this.
Oh,
So
look at
this
there.
gentleman-
Looky there. I need to one that there.
Well, you're self-recording, aren't you?
Oh,
are you? You're self-recording. Are you getting CDs for the?
I'm just putting my name on the list, letting people know that I'm
Gotcha.
So do you need AIA?
No, he doesn't need AIA.
No, but
He's
I
just
just-
he's just an engineer.
Okay, then I don't need it, 'cause this is his copy.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
doing
No,
AIA.
in for a second. Thank you very much.
You guys have a
Yes, sir.
certificate.
One of my things.
A number of people ask for a certificate.
Well, that's why I would need the email
well, here was my thinking. If you just send me a general certificate without names on it, we can add names and send it. That way you don't have to deal with that either.
It's fine. Yeah, because some people have to, the people that aren't AIA self-report, right?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
So, yeah, my sign-in sheet that I sent down earlier, where was Amy here? Amy,
Yes, she was here.
was she?
Yeah.
She was who I was communicating with, and yeah, I had that sign-in sheet and email, because that way I could send out certificates.
Unfortunately, no one shares it with you.
Nobody tells Bruce anything.
All of this is, maybe you haven't gathered,
Well-
but we just changed from having a management company that was,
Yes, correct, I did know that,
To-
and that's what Micah was.
and
Micah's
so all of
taking
this
over.
is doing this right now before it comes back.
Right, and Micah's gonna be your executive director. Is she full-time or working part-time?
Part-time.
Okay. Michelle Swanwick up in St. Louis told me that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I talk
Yeah.
to Michelle, I do programs for Michelle all the time. So, yeah, I knew that you had started, and it's probably a smart move because were you telling somebody was telling me that they think Columbia's pretty much disbanded the Central
Oh,
States.
really?
Really?
The Central States AA. You know what? I've gone to a couple other lunch programs and they don't get much. There is not much in Columbia and Jeff City these days as far as architecture. Or there's some engineering firms, a lot of civil service.
Well, there's a lot of civil service, a lot of people through the state.
Right. But there's no particular, the firms are far and few between. I've got a couple of them there, and there's not nearly what there used to be more.
Right.
The big issue is younger generation. They're not starting out like the baby boomers did. There's a lot of business out of the baby boomers, and the next generation just as big. They don't like the risk of running their own business.
They don't like to.
Which is bad for me.
Right.
It's bad for me. Well, yeah, maybe it's.
They don't like to commit. They don't like to buy houses. They don't like to buy cars. They don't like to start organizations.
What I've noticed in our office is the baby boomers started at 22 years old. They got out of school and their dad told them to get a job.
Right.
In this generation, they want to go live for 3 years and then they come home and dad says, I don't have to get a job right away. And they're 28 years old.
I just had a text message from one of my college buddies. And he goes, I graduated college on Friday.
Yeah.
Started a job on Monday.
Yeah.
He goes, does that make me a boomer?
Yeah. Okay, boomer. Yeah.
I can tell you
I'm going, hey,
I'm in the middle.
That's how I got back
I'm
here.
in the middle of the baby boomers and this next generation. And I was 22 years old. My dad said, all right, go boy.
Yeah.
Go do something.
Well, my wife is a CPA and partner in a firm here in town. They can't find anybody to be the next generation of their firm. They've got people they've hired.
Yeah.
Nobody's putting the time in.
They don't want the
nobody's going out
risk.
doing the
Well,
social stuff.
I got engineering firms selling out the national. I got clients selling the national firms because the next generation says, "Oh, I got soccer on Saturday. I can't be here working.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't want me working until 6 o'clock on Thursday." And the owner, these guys have great firms.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Are you kidding me? You know how much money you're going to be making?" And they look at you like,
Yeah.
self-finance them and everything else.
I mean, I got independent reps all across the country. They're all about my age and older because none of the younger people want the risk. Now, part of that's healthcare, and I understand that. I wish we had a better answer for all that stuff, but
But you lived through it. Healthcare's never been cheap.
I
Not in
know.
my opinion.
I know it
Not in my
hasn't.
opinion, it's never been cheap.
I agree.
Thank you. This was
Absolutely,
great.
Bruce. Project.
The reason I asked you that question, I knew the answer,
I'll get you.
but you weren't going to talk
Oh, yeah,
about
right.
it.
Well, it was actually at the bottom of that email.
And I see so many people that don't change the subject. It just keeps propagating. And so I need to do, I'm working on something and I go back, I do a lot of forensic work.
Right.
I go back looking for, and I can't find the email because there are 95 of them somewhere in here.
I hate that when you've got that stream of
Yeah, it's awful.
4 and I get itchy.
Well, and the other part is the subject line that is so nondescript. I get that from my reps all the time.
Says nothing.
They'll send me a 2-word subject line, and I'm like,
For your info.
or whatever, and I'm like, can you tell me who the client or customer is, and maybe what state, and preferably what city it's located in? That would help me because I'm coast to coast, and these guys, they're in their little microcosm. And that's all they're thinking about. I get it all the time.
It's also amazing to me, I work with a lot of attorneys, how often I have to remind the attorney, do not email me.
I was just taking it out.
Get on the phone. I answer my